welcome to CDO's Magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President of Sandhill Consultants, coming to you today from Toronto, Canada. On behalf of the CDO Magazine, I have the pleasure of introducing Hartnell Ndungi, who is the Chief Data Officer at Absa Bank in Kenya. Welcome, Hartnell.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you, Robert.
It is our pleasure. I think this is my first time interviewing someone from Kenya. We have introduced folks from Nigeria and Saudi Arabia and things like that. But so we welcome Kenya and the community of Kenya to the CDO Magazine.
Thank you.
And in doing the kind of research, I see that you've got quite a full portfolio as a CDO. I believe you lead the following teams such as artificial intelligence, data governance, business intelligence, and the analytics teams. So for our listeners, Hartnell, it'd be good to give maybe a background as to how you got into the banking and financial sector, because I see that that's been your career, most of your career. So how did you get into this?
Well, thank you for that question, Robert. And I'd like to start off at my early life in campus or university. Right. And I'm actually an electrical and electronics engineering graduate, to the surprise of many.
Right.
And
yeah,
what happened is that
I saw that actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how come
and
after that,
right? Excellent. Okay. So after that, I actually decided to go into coding, mostly in technology. I did a bit of IT consulting assignments. It was still on a personal level, and after some time, I actually got into KPMG. KPMG Kenya in particular. At that moment, I think what was really selling as a consulting service was mostly audit. Where I was in, we were focusing on risk consulting and IT advisory. And what we used to do that time is basically go in organizations, banks, and be able to understand how they use technology to actually drive their profits and their business. Now, that's when I actually stumbled upon data, because at that time, I remember we were basically just using data for forensic data analysis. But all the time I used to present to boards in our final consulting assignments, we used to get questions on how can we actually get more futuristic insights? How can we understand how to use data better to grow and transform the business? So I got the interest into data. KPMG Kenya was launching a new data advisory arm. That time it was really early years, 2012, 2013. And we actually got support from other KPMG offices in the world, KPMG Germany, KPMG New York, and just trying to understand how do we actually set up a proper data analytics team. So over time, I actually was able to practice. And luckily for me, I was one of the first leaders to be recruited in a bank. So from consulting, I went into banking. It was the first gig I actually did after my consulting stint. And it was a new environment. I had consulted for banks before, but it was very exciting because in banks, you actually learn about different aspects of sales, business growth, finance, transformation, IT. And it was just trying to piece around how can I actually use data to create value for the organization. So back to your question, that's how I landed into banking. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, have never interviewed or applied for a job from then. It has all been banks looking for me, trying to see exactly how I can actually help them build value using data. And the reason for that is because the chief data officer role has been very new in the country. At that time, in my first experience, I was actually the head of data and analytics. It is now that I've actually been able to become a chief data officer, actually the first in Eastern Central Africa to be a chief data officer. Why the breadth of specialties? I believe I went for the CDO version 3.0. The CDO 1.2 is someone who just looks at data management. Right. CDO 2.0 is someone who looks at analytics and business intelligence as well as data management. CDO 3.2 is someone who looks at data science, artificial intelligence, modern analytics, business intelligence. So it was a very steep learning curve for me. But after the years, I think we have been able to showcase value in the organization that we are in.
Well, KPMG was fortunate to have you. Kenya Absa Bank is fortunate to have you. And of course, we're very fortunate to have you. I think for today's interview, we're going to focus around the future of analytics and how transforming organizations, how you've been able to transform organizations around
Yeah.
analytics. So let's actually start with maybe going back into that analytics phase as to why you believe analytics is so important to today's business, and maybe with a a view of what's so important to businesses in Kenya and Africa in general.
So yeah, I think data is actually the center glue of most fourth industrial revolution technologies. When you're talking about artificial intelligence, you're talking about data science, you're talking about Internet of Things. All of this is driven by understanding data. The same to robotics. It involves training large sets of data to just create robots that can do different kinds of things using AI. I think we are past the days where everyone was saying data is the new gold or the new oil. Data is actually now a survival tool for any business. You actually have to have insights. You have to have information to ensure that you're able to plan and budget well. You actually are supposed to not only look at what is happening in your organization, but also the future. So gone are the days whereby you used to depend on people's experience. Basically, you are hiring someone because they have actually done this 10 times or more. Now you can actually hire someone who's analytical and someone who can be able to extract data points. Why I think data is important is actually for three key points. Number one is growth. I think post-COVID, actually during COVID, people had to innovate different ways of actually becoming valuable to their customers. And what we have seen across board is that the people who actually use data are the ones who actually were able to showcase additional value to their customers and their businesses. Transformation is because most businesses are actually getting the competition from fintechs. In the banking and financial services space, I think fintechs have shown us that by being nimble, agile, using new technologies, you can actually innovate new kind of products. And I think banks, financial service players are actually seeing this, and it's actually the way to actually transform yourself. So gone are the days whereby fintechs could run to banks and large insurance organizations and ask them, can we really partner with you?
Right.
The story has changed. It is now banks coming to fintechs and asking them, how can we partner so that you can be as nimble as you? So it's a survival tool. I believe all organizations require data and data skills. So it's key to actually have these skills, not only in the world, but specifically for Kenya. We are seeing now most banks 6 and 7 years down the line, everyone is recruiting for a head of data.
Excellent. So you talked about the growth, the three key areas were the growth, the providing additional value, and the transformation and competition, right? So
yep.
Love to see it. And actually digging into a little bit further, when I was looking at your experience in the AI space and the analytics space, you talked about use cases. You talked about how use cases can encompass profitability, artificial intelligence, operational efficiency, and product development growth, some of the pillars you mentioned here. Could you talk about, the approach that you use, or, the criteria that you would use to develop a use case? Is there a certain methodology you use? We're just looking to learn from your success, so to speak.
Okay, thank you for the question. You actually have multiple ways of defining and prioritizing use cases. I'll give a very simplistic one that has worked over and over. Number one, you have to understand that when you're talking about a use case in the sense of data, it is actually a business problem that can be solved using data and analytics.
Right.
So most people usually go and they go into the internet and surf. Give me examples of use cases that you can actually suggest to your business. That's one way, but it's not the most effective. What I see working is that you actually go and sit with your business counterparts and understand what are the problems they actually face. What are their critical processes, so that you can be able to know from my data expertise, where can I easily plug? So that's the first way. So what we usually do, and I usually do every year, is that I send my team of analysts to go and just discuss with business, talk about their strategies, talk about their growth ambitions, their changes with regards to what they are trying to implement and execute for new KPIs. And from there, you are actually able to pick out growth, transformation opportunities, returns opportunities, customer understanding opportunities. And I can give a very simplistic one in the element of artificial intelligence. That when you actually look at a credit card business, which is a key product within a bank, when you go and understand how do they actually determine the limit that they actually define for any customer who has a credit card.
Sure.
So most people will actually check how much you earn and how much you're actually able to pay based on your history. Using data science and artificial intelligence, you are able to actually do the same thing using behavior. So number one, you have to understand what kind of behavior is expressed by your card users from their different transactions and interactions. Then be able to come up with an artificial intelligence use case, which will enable the system to automatically add the limit of a credit card user by cross-checking the ability to pay, where they're spending, and behaviors of similar customers around the same area. So that's one good use case. And I can see for us, I think that's a good example for Absa Bank.
Absolutely. Yeah. We hope that we get a chance to have a conversation about what's going on with you and Absa Bank in the future. And we just wish you the best of luck. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your time as well, Robert.
You're welcome. And for listeners, please visit CDO Magazine for additional interviews. Thank you.